As you may know, I officiate at many weddings. I have just completed the 40th wedding that I have officiated at just this year. And often, as part of their vows, a couple will promise to be faithful to each other. In the past few weeks, we've been exploring what Paul calls the fruits of the Spirit. In his letter to the Galatians, he tells them that if they lived Spirit-filled lives, which I understand to mean as living our lives from a place of wholeheartedness, a place of awareness that we are part of one universal power and that we're all connected to each other, then these fruits of the spirits are attributes and values and characteristics which would flow from us naturally without any need for a written law. I learned the fruits of the Spirit from a song that we used to sing at church. And if you'll pardon my singing, which you all should be somewhat used to by now, I'll try and remember how to sing it. It went something like this. For the fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. For such there is no law. So that's how I can remember them pretty clearly. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. 9 fruits of the Spirit. And today, I want to talk about faithfulness. In spiritual circles, we talk a lot about faith, but we don't often talk about faithfulness. What is faithfulness? Well, if you were to go to Wikipedia, you'd get this response. Wikipedia defines faithfulness as, and I quote, the concept of unfailingly remaining loyal to someone or something and putting that loyalty into consistent practice regardless of extenuating circumstances. It may be exhibited by a husband or wife who does not engage in sexual relationships outside of the marriage. End quote. Merriam-Webster dictionary says this. Faithfulness, quote, loyal, such as a faithful friend, steadfast in allegiance. Conscientious, such as a faithful employee, firm in adherences to promises or in observance of duty. Binding, such as a faithful promise, something that is given with a strong assurance. And true, such as a faithful copy, true to the facts, to a standard, or to an original. We also refer to the faithful as a group, such as the faithful, when we talk about a group of people who believe in something, or a person, one who is faithful, such as a loyal follower, member, or fan. End quote. Merriam-Webster. If I were to put that all together in my language, it would be that faithfulness, especially to others, is acting with integrity and remaining loyal, even when circumstances or other opinions might cause us to doubt. Acting with integrity and remaining loyal, even when circumstances or other opinions might cause us to doubt. This definition is one that we want to apply to people in our world. It is true in our relationships with all people, and most especially true for the people that we care about We want to be faithful to our spouses, to our children, to our parents, our siblings, our extended families, our neighbors. And one of the main areas where we fail at being faithful is in what we say about other people. And so one way that we can demonstrate faithfulness is to look at how we speak and how we don't speak about others. If our definition of faithfulness is integrity and loyalty, then we want to speak from integrity and speak with loyalty. We read about the power of the tongue in perhaps my favorite book in the Christian scriptures, in what we know colloquially as the New Testament, the book of James. I like James because he is both practical and wise, and it's also the name of one of my uncles, so I like it even more. James talks about how just a few words used with intention can have an influence on many. And so as I read this passage, think of an instance that you may have experienced where a few words of gossip, a few words of innuendo, a few words of rumor or doubt or disinformation may have influenced you. And he speaks about the power of just a few words to make a big difference, both positively and negatively. In this case, I'm asking you to think in terms of the power of the negative word. So James chapter 3, beginning at verse 3, and I quote, "When we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we can turn the whole animal. Or take ships as an example. Although they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot wants to go. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire." So James is saying that a few words can make a big difference. He refers to words as being able to corrupt, that is, to infect or destroy a body. That body can be a person, a community, a family unit, a workplace, a society, or a country. Our speech can corrupt any of these bodies. And then he uses quite intense language when he says that with speech, we can set the course of a body's life on fire. In Proverbs, we are told that life and death are in the power of the tongue. That's Proverbs 18, verse 21. Speech, then, can give life, and it can sap life, take life away. The power of our speech is crucial if we are to demonstrate faithfulness to the people we care about. So let's look at how we can increase the level of our faithfulness to others using the power of our speech. Imagine that all of our conversations can be represented by one of two pyramids, two columns, if you will. Both are identical, except for their base. At the foundation of the first pyramid, we see facts. We see facts, and then above that, we see opinions, accusations, judgments, and actions forming the higher levels. At the foundation of the second pyramid, we see the same upper levels, opinions, accusations, judgments, and actions. But the base is different. Instead of facts, as we saw in the first pyramid, the foundation of the second pyramid is innuendo, also known as rumor. Now, let's think of these pyramids as representative of our conversations. And whether they are about something or someone, let's assume that all of our conversations are either based in innuendo and rumor or fact. Both may lead to action. Both will potentially lead to acceptance or rejection of an idea or a person. But one pyramid of conversation, the one based on innuendo and rumor, happens in the dark. It is hidden from the view of the people or the entities who are the subject of the conversation, while the other, the one based on fact, holds those conversations in the open. So one level of conversation is subversive, innuendo, and one is transparent, fact. And remember, we demonstrate faithfulness by how we speak and don't speak about others. And applying our definition of faithfulness, we want to speak from integrity and with loyalty. Let's look at a conversation pyramid of the innuendo and rumor first. This is the arena where gossip thrives. Suggestions, hints, possibilities may be presented as facts. And in fact, innuendos and rumors are often partially factual, which is what makes them so believable. A discussion at the level of innuendo often starts with the words, "Guess what?" and often ends with the words, "Promise you won't tell?" This asking for a promise of secrecy almost guarantees that the rumor will spread to other people, often becoming increasingly embellished with every retelling. Eventually, when we base our conversations on rumor and innuendo, the distinction between fact and fiction becomes murkier and murkier and murkier. And the unwitting and unsuspecting subject of our parking lot conversations may have absolutely no idea that there are stories being told around their back, until they are essentially tried, judged, and convicted in the court of public opinion without any opportunity to share the facts. And even if they could share the facts at that point, and by that point, often it is too late. The damage is done. Rumor and innuendo is the most dangerous level of conversation. It is often a conversation initiated just by one or two people, but it can spread like wildfire, just as James said in his letter. It can lead to rejection of a person, rejection of an idea. Speech that starts as innuendo can lead to opinions that are based on falsehoods And then those opinions can eventually lead to actions such as isolation and rejection, all based on falsehood. Indeed, rumor and innuendo can lead to the corruption of the body that James spoke about, set on fire the life of the person, the family, the community, the workplace, or the country. And an example of this that we see is occasionally in politics, where a rumor is started and which takes hold. And even though the accusation may have no merit, the judgment is made, the damage is done, and the career is ended. Instead, the desirable conversation is formed with facts as the base and the basis of our discussions. Facts can be verified, they can be supported, and they can be agreed upon by an outside observer. Our opinions about a subject or a person may rest, or they may change based on factual information. We may make decisions and accusations and judgments based on facts. And indeed, we might even take action, including rejection or banishment or isolation of a person based on those facts. So it's not as if the actions and the opinions won't happen, but we base them on facts, not on rumor. For example, if it is proven that someone has stolen from a workplace, a typical action in our society is to make a decision to fire them and potentially to accuse and judge them in court and send them to prison. So to be faithful and loyal does not deny fact. It does disallow rumor. We want to limit our speech and our conversations to discussions which are based on facts. Well, how do we do that? One idea is to set a boundary, to refuse to speak about anything or anyone if the opinion is based on rumor or innuendo, especially if the person is not in the room. That means that when somebody comes to us and wants to talk about someone, or they come up to us with a, guess what? We direct them with words such as, I'm not going to talk about Jane, John, Sally. Insert name here, unless they are here. Or, I want to be faithful to people who aren't here to hear what's being said about them. Let's talk about something else. Refuse to speak about someone who isn't there. Another idea is to ask for clarity. When someone is sharing an opinion about someone or something, ask, how did you arrive at that conclusion? What exactly did they do? In this way, we become a voice for the truth, and we insist on discussion at the level of fact. What about when we know factual information about someone or something? Well, remember, we demonstrate faithfulness by how we speak and don't speak about others. And so before we become the tattletale with our own, guess what? Let's pause to consider if what we're about to share is ours to tell. Whether it's good news or sad news, let's be sure to ask permission before we spread information, even if it's true. Throughout our conversations, we want to continually monitor which pyramid we are speaking from. Is our discussion based on fact, or is it just based on rumor? Is the loud voice of opinion of someone else in the room speaking from fact, or are they speaking from rumor? If it's not based on fact, speak up, ask for clarity, request that the conversation be limited to facts. And when we do that, when we start limiting our conversations to those that are based in fact, we may notice how often people speak with authority and conviction, with strongly formed opinions based in innuendo and in rumor. We may notice that people don't actually know what else to say to us. We may discover that our entire relationship is based on gossiping about something or someone. And that's okay. We'll either find something new to talk about, or we'll find ourselves drifting apart. Either way, the relationship is more productive when it is not participating in gossip. And then 2 final thoughts I want to share with you with respect to how we can be more faithful to others. The first is to do with the term you may have heard called triangulation. Triangulation is often considered to be something that we want to avoid. It is what happens when we speak to someone else about someone else. So there's me, you, and a third person. And often triangulation is harmful when our gossip is based on innuendo and falsehood, when we complain and share our opinions and concerns and speak with multiple people about someone rather than to the subject of our upset. That can be hurtful, harmful, and disrespectful. However, I want to offer the idea that triangulation is sometimes helpful. Triangulation is sometimes helpful. If we have a situation, either fact-based or some rumor that we have heard that is concerning to us, it may be very useful to speak to 1 or 2 trusted people to help us to clarify our thinking, to help us to discern the wisest course of action. This trusted person could be a friend, a counselor, a parent, a minister, a sibling, a physician, a spouse. The important personality trait that we want to look for in that person is that they be willing to listen, that they be willing to be non-judgmental, and that they be able to hold the conversation in sacred confidentiality. In this way, triangles work. They help us to get clear about what's really going on for us so that we can take sane, sensible, thoughtful, and loving action. And the last thought I have is this. Let's not be too hard on ourselves when we fail to be faithful to others. We humans are hardwired to be a part of community. We are hardwired to protect ourselves. And from the time of our ancestors, membership in the tribe represented safety and security. And as a result, we naturally try to ensure that we are part of the power group. For our ancestors, the alternative could mean death, exclusion from the tribe by banishment, and isolation was a serious punishment because it could be literally life-threatening. Only execution was worse. Today, exclusion from the tribe is still a serious punishment, and we fear it, to the point that we will risk and become, at times, less than faithful. In the Christian scriptures, Jesus refers to his disciple Simon as Peter, which means rock, Simon Peter. And Jesus said that on that rock he would build his church. Not long after Jesus said that to Simon Peter, he warned Peter that in the morning, the next morning, before the rooster crowed, that Peter, that rock on which Jesus said he would build his church, would deny that he knew Jesus. And Jesus foretold that Peter would not just deny Jesus once, but he would deny Jesus 3 times. Of course, Peter vehemently protested, assuring Jesus that he would be completely faithful to him. And when the time came and Peter was questioned and accused by the mob, he did just as Jesus predicted. He disowned Jesus 3 times in a row. And it was only when he heard the rooster crowing that Peter realized what he had done, and he was overcome with grief. This story illustrates how challenging it can be to remain faithful to others despite our very best intentions. Why did Peter fail in his test of faith? Why do we sometimes fail at being faithful? Well, the more I think about this question, the more it seems to me that the reason that we betray others are all related to our own sense of security and self-worth. If we were aware of our own goodness, if we were solid with ourselves, if you will, then we wouldn't need that false sense of camaraderie, that juicy energy that comes from feeling that we're part of the in crowd. We wouldn't need to feel that we are part of the group in order to feel safe. The more we are able to be faithful to ourselves, the more we can trust ourselves, the more we can be independent of the crowd and realize that we don't need to live in the fear that our ancestors lived in, then the easier it will be to differentiate between conversations, opinions, accusations, which are built on fact and those which are built on rumor and innuendo. As we expand our faith-filled and faithful life, we grow in our faithfulness towards others by becoming aware of the power of speech. We use our power of speech for good. We refuse to engage in conversations which are based in rumor, innuendo, and gossip. We speak up for those who aren't in the room. We encourage speaking to people rather than about people. We share only the information that is ours to share. And we honor confidentiality and any information that is shared with us confidentially. If we decide that we must speak to a third party, we do so intentionally and with discernment, speaking only to people who we trust will hold that same level of confidentiality as we hold for ourselves. Above all, we choose to base our speech in fact, in love, in consideration of the people we are speaking about. And we are faithful and true to ourselves and to our values, as well as the people around us when we live by these guidelines. May we all bless our lives and the lives of those we care about by living a faithful life. I bless you.